The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
And if you're wondering which of us has the velvety mic, it's me.
It ain't me. In fact, I don't even think I have the mic that comes with your Apple plan. I think I got the Chinese, the cheap one that comes from Amazon.com.
I hate to be the one to tell you this, but thanks for opening up a can of pop on the podcast. I mean, don't do it before we start.
I don't drink pop. I drink black cherry flavored water, my friend. New sponsor of the podcast, Soleil. Enjoy. Signature Select from Bonds.
I was just going to say that, by the way, all Apple devices are made in China. So don't be blaming China.
I know, but there's you know how there's the ones that Apple gets and they're supposedly, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference in how they work and how they feel. So I thought I was being clever. I was like, hey, I'm just going straight to the source and buying Chinese direct. I tell you what, though, it has worked for Legos. Never mind that Boba Fett has a Darth Vader helmet. Never mind that I just won't go there. Never mind.
I don't know where you went, but it was pleasant for me to sit back and enjoy. Hey, so let's get on to the important stuff. By the way, guys, if this is your first time tuning in, this is what we call Smack Talk. Don't worry, we're going to get to some church planning goodness in a minute. But until then, this is how Peyton and I catch up on each other's lives, and you just happen to get to tune in for a half hour of it. So, Star Wars trailer, go.
Man. What do I say? I have faith in JJ, Pete. You know that. I'm a JJ fan. But I watched it, and I was like, I felt better about the new film coming up before I saw this.
Really?
It didn't get me in the feels, as the millennial kids like to say.
Really? I actually was, for the first time, okay, I might be a little bit excited about this one.
Okay, tell me why. That's my alarm telling me to hop on a podcast with Pete Mitchell. Apparently it went on snooze.
It looked actually enjoyable. I thought there was a heartbreaking moment in the trailer when C-3PO says, I just want to look at my friends one last time.
Yeah, that was okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Little tear-jerker moment in a trailer. That was nice.
Yeah, it was a bit uncalled for. Don't do that to me. Yeah, that kind of sucked. I wonder if he's getting shut down.
I don't know, but remember in the last trailer, he had red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is obviously happens before the red eyes.
I believe C-3PO is going to sacrifice himself.
To do what, do you think?
I don't know, but I think he's going to sacrifice himself to do something to help them defeat the Emperor. Maybe he'll have a lightsaber shoot out of his head, like R2-D2 did.
So I don't know if you saw it. I actually, just before the podcast, had a Wayne here in my office, and I'm like, have you seen the new trailer? No? Okay, we got to watch it. And there's a scene where Rey and Kylo are both fighting, and what looks like, when you freeze it, it's Darth Vader.
It's his armor. Yeah, it's his armor. And they shatter it together, which tells me their team. That's the thing, is I feel like they gave so many plot lines away in this trailer that I didn't want to see that. I wanted to be completely surprised by that.
You think they're brother and sister?
I absolutely, hands down, they're brother and sister.
Then doesn't that make the whole shirtless scene a little bit even more weird in the last movie, or is that just a throwback to Luke and Leia?
I was going to say, as weird as brother and sister kissing in Empire, sure. And him having the hots for in A New Hope. Oh, boy.
Welcome to the Church Planter Podcast.
Nothing says incest like Star Wars.
Oh man, you just ruined the whole movie for me.
Yeah, they're brother and sister, and it's obvious to me.
Who's mom and dad? Who's mom and dad?
Mom and dad
Ben
are
not Ben. Solo and
Mara Jade.
and
Mara
Leia?
Jade it's Mara Jade and
No, you think they're adopted? Ben? You think it's Ben and Mara
So-
Jade?
yeah, it's Mara Jade and no, it's Mara Jade and Luke.
Oh, you
Our
think
mom and
Luke?
dad.
Oh,
Luke. See, these are Luke's
not
kids.
Ben. Of course not Ben.
No, because Han Solo, he's how do I put it? He's not Adam Driver's dad, Kylo. He's not Ben's, Basically, Luke had two twins. He had twins. And
Wait, how many twins are there?
He had two of them. Much like when someone has three.
When we
triplets.
do an afternoon podcast, this is what happens, everybody. This is an afternoon podcast.
It is an afternoon podcast. Welcome to Smack Talk. But, it's funny, Pete, because my thought is he and Mara Jade, now that they brought the Emperor, I've been saying for a while, these are Luke's kids. This is why Luke is so upset. And you guys have heard my theory on the whole idea that these are twins. Twins run through the Star Wars universe, just like Luke and Leia were twins. They were separated for their own protection. Once they brought the Emperor back, I'm like, this is undoubtedly Luke and Leia. The only other possibility that could have happened is the Emperor has created two more Force kids, right? And that they're from unknown origin, that somehow somebody put them in Leia's arms, and she knows why, and someone else. Because remember that little medallion in the very opening scene of Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and Kylo comes into that village, you get it? Max von Sydow has this weird little amulet, and it's apparently something super important. And you never really learn what it is, what it's supposed to spark the rebellion or whatever it is. And, we don't entirely know what's going on. So my thought is that we basically, there's a lot of mysteries going to be unpacked, but I still got to think this is brother and sister. They're twins.
Yeah, could very well be. And I'll be really interested to see what role does the Emperor play in all of it.
Was he Snoke? Yes.
Oh, you think, okay.
And there's one scene where they show something kind of mechanical, and she's looking up, and I believe that the Emperor is going to be a lot like Darth Vader now, where he's part mechanical. Whatever happened jacked him up in the mine shaft, when they threw him down into the power vortex. He is now part mechanical. He's like Darth Vader now. I don't think he's going to look like Vader, but I think there's going to be that throwback, and that's going to be so freaking rad to see the Emperor as some kind of cyborg like Darth Vader. More machine than man.
Interesting. Huh.
I love that little dude that's working on C-3PO, that little teeny critter that's like the mechanic that's fixing him. He's hopping around on the back of his head.
Yeah.
He's awesome. That's a great creation.
Huh.
What else?
But you didn't like it that much, huh? I thought it was great.
There were parts I liked. So what I liked was the opening where she's running through the jungle with a training orb,
right.
The Jedi training orb that they use that shoot lasers. I love that she's been training nonstop, kind of like Luke. She's driven to
that's why we both knew there's the scene where she got a lightsaber with a hinge on it, and I was like, "This is stupid. This is ridiculous."
That's her vision, though.
Yeah,
that's going to be her vision.
It's the cave at Dagobah. I mean, that's all that was, and never even thought it was anything other than that.
And she had that when she went into that pit on the island, which it's almost like. Yeah, like JJ's like, yeah, let's just pass through that. I was not happy that I saw them riding more furry, four-legged space horses.
Oh, come on. How can you not go wrong with more furry space horses?
I was not happy that the equivalent of Jar Jar, which is Rose, I like to call her Rose Jar. She's in this next, no offense to her. She got a lot of abuse, and I don't mean to add to that. So if you're listening, Rose Jar, I'm sorry. It's not you. I love that there's Asian representation. It's none of that stuff.
Do you think she's going to be a church planner?
I think she's possibly listening. We never know. One never knows, Pete. And, if she's, I don't mean to hurt you, Rose Jar. It's just, you are the Jar Jar for this trilogy. I do apologize. You are. So, yeah. There's
Interesting.
There was no Jar Jar for the original Star Wars. You realize that, right? They're like, Jawas, first one only. Ewoks, third one only. Right? Ugnaughts, second one only. This one, they're like, hey, let's take Jar Jar and run him through all 3 prequels. Let's take, let's continue Rose. And I do think Rose is kind of like a nod. Like, you'd be like, well, where did Rose go? So they got to show her one brief scene. I don't think she's in it. Know what I'm saying?
Well, we can always hope that she's not.
And no offense to her, because she was fine. She was just an unnecessary character.
Look, if you got hung up on the fact that you got given a bad role, you still got paid. So I have no sympathy for you,
dude. I'd play Rose.
Me too.
You need a Rose. Hey, I'm in. Yeah. I'll be it. I'll kiss Finn. Too far?
Always. You're always too far.
Did I lose you, Pete?
No, I'm right here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Pete, what happened?
Hello?
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 Pete?
Hello?
Peter?
Peyton?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, what happened?
I don't know.
Did you lose my sound?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm leaving all of that in, by the way.
Hey, that's fine.
Not cutting.
I don't care.
We're already late on getting this episode out.
This is Nigel. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? That's true. So, okay. So, what about you, man? What are your predictions for this movie?
Sorry. I'm optimistic. I'm really wondering how is JJ going to pull it off with Ryan having ruined it, or having ruined the entire Star Wars universe. So
he pretty much did. Yeah, almost single-handedly did so.
Yeah, I mean, literally best line ever was when you said he actually made the prequels look like Oscar winners.
Oh yeah,
and you're right. 100%.
I would rather watch all 3 prequels back to back than watch Episode 8, Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's how bad it was.
Easily. Yeah.
It was bad.
So yeah, I mean, when I saw this trailer, I'm like, okay, we're in a jungle, been there, done that. Okay. We're in Water Planet, been there, done that.
Now they have a floating ice world that they...
No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
I'm with you. It's always cool. Anything in space to me is going to be cool.
So the scene where they've got the armada of Star Destroyers coming out of the water, that's where the Emperor's been hiding them, is deep underwater. So the fact that he brings those up and out, because, the Death Star probably had, people are like, where did he get all those? Well, the Death Star
was huge.
There's a big chunk of it. There's obviously a bunch of Star Destroyers in that Death Star, and he just raises them up like, boom, he just, hey, come on, my children, time to rise up. So he does that, which is pretty freaking rad. And trying to think of what else. I mean, Billy D is going to be in it, so that's going to be cool, right? And we got Space Horses.
I liked seeing Chewbacca go to town on the stormtroopers, just shooting them up.
Oh, I didn't see that.
They're in a hallway. He's running down the hall, and he's going to town.
He's pretty bad to the bone. I mean, okay, it was the Han Solo film, which I thought was fantastic.
See, wasn't it good?
Yeah, and that's where you get kind of the appreciation of Chewbacca as a fighter, which was great because they never really showed us that before.
Right.
And in that, he's bad to the bone, man. Like Chewbacca's like. Even when Han Solo grabs this and goes, I like this thing.
Yeah, I know,
his
right?
Laser crossbow.
Here's the thing, though. It took him how many years to figure out that he liked it?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Did you see the Emperor's Throne in this commercial?
Yeah. Yeah. Looked like Game of Thrones throne.
Yeah. That thing, I'm thinking, is it kind of to me looked a bit like Snoke. It looked like Snoke's throne, that we first see on, not with the spikies coming out of it, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That was pretty cool. So I think there's going to be a Snoke connection. That's going to
but you don't think Snoke was really? I think it was the Emperor the whole time. I don't think.
I do.
Think Snoke
I've always said that
it wasn't Snoke. It was the Emperor.
I've literally said that from the beginning. That I thought that Snoke was the Emperor, and that we would. And then when I saw Last Jedi, I'm like, oh, he was a Force projection. Figured that out in the movie, simply because in the first one he is a hologram the entire time. Every time you see him, he's a hologram. In the second movie, Luke uses that Force power. And in the second movie, I just think to myself, Snoke is a persona. The Emperor's still around. And then boom, lo and behold, the Emperor. So it confirmed my original theory. So I can't wait for all my predictions to come true. I wish I were betting money on this. Poor church planners out there, if you want to bet $1 on these things, I'm just saying I'm collecting. There's only one of me and there's a ton of you. So I stand to either win big or lose big.
Huh. Interesting. I like it. I like where your head's at.
Yeah, buddy. I'm just saying. These things, you forget all my theories, huh?
No, I haven't forgotten them all.
Okay. I hope they don't bring that one chick back with the goggles who was flying around the second one. I'm in a jetpack and I'm having a conversation while I'm freedom fighting some random battle on this planet. I thought she was
in the first one. Was she in the second one?
She was, and she was so dumb and unnecessary. And that's why I think when that lightsaber called to her, she's Luke's daughter. That's why it was calling to her. It was Darth Vader's. It's hers. The only reason for that chick, and JJ said, oh, you'll see more of her later. And he debated putting more of her story, but she goes, that's another story for another time of how she came into contact. There's all this mystery, right? Which I hope they do unpack. Who placed the kid on Jakku? Who gave the lightsaber to her? So there's always a sense, and they say it in the trailer that Finn says in the beginning, the Force brought us together. Like the Force wants us to be together. And there is that sense that the Force has a will, right? It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings kind of deal. The ring wants to be found. There's the sense that the Force has its plan, that it's working out. And so knowing, I think Luke took that lightsaber just like it was kept by Ben Kenobi all those years, waiting for him to redeem his father. So Luke gives that lightsaber to that chick, knowing that one day the Force will bring her to her, Rey, to whatever that orange chick's name is, and she'll be able to get it to redeem her brother. It's like the same recurring patterns over and over.
So are you going to see it opening night? That's the real question.
That is the real question. And I thought about that yesterday. Not that kind of guy, really. I'm not the opening night kind of guy.
I was wondering how many tickets I needed to pick up. Now I know it's just me and Luke. Thank you for letting me know.
Well, now that gets interesting. I could come down to the mother-in-law's. And would Jamie come see it?
No, because it'll be too late for Mackenzie.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think Mackenzie's actually...
That's what GJ's for.
Not on a Thursday.
Okay.
So
Gigi's got her bingo. I get it.
Gigi got to go work, man. She has to fund these kids. They're expensive.
They are, man. They are.
So what I was thinking is I'm trying to decide between 2D or IMAX.
Oh, dude,
or
IMAX
3D
all the way?
or 2D. 3D or 2D,
Okay.
I should say. 2D in IMAX or 3D on regular screen. And I'm leaning towards 3D because I'm a 3D kind of guy.
I'll talk to Andrew and see what she wants to do, because she went and saw Rambo with me. Last Blood.
Did you?
Yeah, she went and saw it with me.
Oh,
I looked
dude.
at her. I looked at her at one point and I go, I guess I got to go see. First, I look over and I go, "You're a good wife. I love you." Because it was a scene where. Have you seen it yet?
Dude, we talked about it on the podcast.
Okay.
I've had
All
church
right.
planners reach out to me and go, thanks to you, I went and saw Rambo Last Blood.
That's
I
rad.
kid you
Were they
not.
happy?
Yes.
Okay.
Who
All right.
could not be happy about that movie?
Okay, but I don't want to ruin the ending, but that thump, 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 thump at the end, that was over the top cheese ball.
Wait.
That was over the top cheese ball. But the rest of the movie
I don't know what the
was
thump,
pretty-
thump, thump, thump was.
You know how he deals with the bad guy at the end? Thump, 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 thump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, no, no, it's so
Dude.
cheesy.
Are you kidding me? That's the reason why it's such a great movie.
And the monologue at the end, that's why I'll always be here to defend the ones I love. And you're like, but dude, but that doesn't work. That doesn't fit what is actually happening in this scene. Now he's going to be around it. He gave birth to himself.
Dude, no. The thing that is so great about everything that happens at his farmhouse is there is like, under no circumstance, at no moment in time is his life in jeopardy. Even when he's shot. He's been shot in so many movies before that. It was like, it's a flesh wound. It was like nothing.
Yeah.
He was never in jeopardy.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that because, yes, Rambo has survived worse wounds than that. I have to say, as soon as the movie opens and I see those tunnels, I'm like, okay, I know what's going down here. All right. You just know. Like it wasn't like a fine piece of cinema, but it was fun. I have to say, it was kind of like the 80s. It was like, this is just fun. I don't even, my brother's combat infantry and he laughs. I told him, Mom, I'm going to go see Rambo with Andrea. And he laughs and goes, yeah, because, and he's a fan, but he goes, yeah, because, there's nothing more realistic than a 70-year-old man taking on a small army.
I'm just saying, it was great. Like, you don't watch that movie going, I want a great storyline.
Nope.
That was the first movie. Every movie since then has been about the action.
Right. No, it was good. I thought it was a pretty decent send-off for him. If that's going to be the final one.
If that's the key line there. If it's going to be the send-off. But you see,
he always says it is.
This is what we said on the podcast last time when we discussed it. When they showed the clips of all the other movies at the very end,
rad. That was
did
epic.
you notice how they kind of skipped over the third movie? The one in Afghanistan. That was when they were like, we're going to show you one. Okay, good. Now let's just keep going.
They
Let's
showed it
everyone
real
forget
quick, though.
that happened.
They
real
did
quick.
put it in there real quick. But they
Real
didn't show
quick.
him
Like, we got to give it a
helicopter.
nod, but then that was it. It was like, okay, that's it. That's enough of that movie. Let's go on to the rest.
They spent a lot of time on the very first one. That was the one that they showed the most images.
Well, that's because it's the best of all of them.
Of course.
Last
Now,
night I watched.
I've married well.
Last night I watched Rocky Balboa.
So good.
Yeah,
Such
really
a good film.
Really good.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is so that one and Rocky 1 are kind of like the two pieces of really good filmmaking. And he's good. I noticed, so when I was watching the end, I was like, I liked all the movie. I just thought the end was a little cornball. And I was like, okay, but it was fine. But I looked and I saw it wasn't directed by Stallone. And I was a little sad by that. I was a little bit like, I would have loved to have seen one more film directed because I actually think he's a fantastic director.
Huh.
So,
Yeah.
when you think about that dude, he wrote that stuff. So, anyways.
All right, so let's move into today's topic. Let me actually go over here. Where are you, Doc? Doc Brown. Here we go, Doc.
Great Scott! It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
I do have to share one little tidbit about
Okay.
Stallone before we go on. There's a YouTube video with Stallone and Schwarzenegger and how they both share in these interviews how they hated each other's guts.
Who?
And Stallone and Schwarzenegger back in the day.
Oh,
They were
okay.
so jealous of each other. And, they were always compared to one another and they had this rivalry. And so it was kind of like who could kill the most people in the movie. And you can see that like with Cobra and had the highest body count of any movie. They were trying to outdo each other on like how ripped each other was, how, because Stallone would get super ripped. He'd never be as big as Arnie, but he could get super ripped. And so they would kind of have these things. And then, he does Rambo, Schwarzenegger does Commando, like there's all this June back and forth to each other. And what happened was Schwarzenegger says that he actually started sabotaging Stallone's films. What he would do is he would have his agent put the whispers out while certain movie roles are going, if you don't take it, Arnold's going to. Things like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, Tango and Cash, all these movies that were terrible that Stallone was in. And Stallone's like, oh, my agent kept saying, he's a shoo-in if you don't take it. So he started taking these out of jealousy. And then meanwhile, Schwarzenegger, he took Red Heat, and he took some stinkers as well. But eventually Stallone's getting like Terminator and, some great films. But basically it was a rivalry. And they realized, that rivalry helped kind of push us. Schwarzenegger turned around in an interview and said, without Stallone, I wouldn't be where I was today because he pushed me on. He made me work hard. That rivalry was healthy. And I thought that was kind of cool, just like because now they're super good friends. They love each other. But back then, man, it was cool. And so they make the point, they say, we realized at a certain point we weren't competing with one another. We were competing with ourselves. We're in a different place mentally now. So that was kind of cool.
Cool. So let's actually get into today's topic. And just so you know, I got about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. So church planner, you're kind of short today.
Yeah, well, it's an afternoon podcast. That's how it works. Oh,
I see. This isn't the From Concealment podcast. By the way, I was told to point out that my choice cuts go to the Ministry Ninja podcast. That was my, I was told by Barry Waters to mention.
I was just going to say, no one cares what Barry thinks. I literally was about ready to say that.
I got my one piece of hate mail. He's my co-host on the other show, along with Andrea. So if you ever want to hear what it sounds like to be married to me, check that out. Okay, getting into our topic. So Pete, obviously, yourself being a sexist, we have to address the elephant in the room. And of course, I'm teasing everybody. Pete knows I'm teasing, but you guys may not. But recently, Johnny Mac, made the statement that Paula White, or no, not Paula White.
Yeah.
That'd be a different. Woo-hoo. Beth Moore. Well, we were talking about that, weren't we? So people confuse the two. Paula White is a televangelist who is prosperity gospel, false teacher, yada, yada. Whereas Beth Moore is a very conservative Southern Baptist complementarian woman who teaches the Bible. Now, she happens to be a #1 bestseller, happens to be very popular, and has a vast ministry to women, but is not a head covering wearing Southern Baptist, but a Southern Baptist nevertheless. And she has been in and out of controversy, and I feel like she's being victimized personally. Poor lady who's just trying to teach the Bible to a bunch of women. Her pastor did the scandalous thing of having her teach on Mother's Day about motherhood. And like Joker says in The Dark Knight, everyone just starts losing their minds, So that went all around. And recently, John MacArthur was asked about, Beth, what do you think of Beth Moore? Because, it's kind of a stalwart of the Reformed.
What it was tradition. Exactly was he's speaking at a conference or something like that. And they said, okay, we're going to say 2 words and we want you to say the first 2 words that pop into your mind. And so he was the very first person up and they said, Beth Moore. And he said, go home. Like that was, and then, that was what started the whole thing.
Oh, so it's so much more painful. It makes it just so much more painful. Yeah.
That's why I was saying, you know what? If he didn't have a track record of this, which he kind of does.
He does.
If he didn't have a track record, I would have said, you know what? Someone just caught him off guard and said, hey, tell us what you think about this.
Well, most people would apologize if they were caught off guard and they're like, look, it just jumped into my head. You said the first thing. I don't know why I said that. She's great. I guess it was kind of funny at the time, but I realize it hurts feelings and confuses people. And I'm sorry, guys. Could you just maybe forgive me a little bit? And, but that's not the case, and that's not what happened, and that's not what he feels. So, funny enough, I read a book by him years ago called Rocking the Rolls. And it was, I've been accused before. My wife, occasionally, when I tell her, hey, doing the dishes is women's work. No, I'm teasing, I don't say that. But I will sometimes, just goof off with my wife because I help around the house. And it's not like the housework is her deal because she's a woman. We're grown adults and we both got to look after the house. And we share that housework. And so... but occasionally I'll make a joke or whatever, and she'll be like, oh, you 1950s man, and she knows I'm teasing and it's lighthearted and it's no big deal. And she'll tease me about things about being a man. We're not hypersensitive. If you're hypersensitive about that stuff, you wouldn't make it in our house because we joke about stupid stuff like that. But that said, it was a diatribe of 1950s men. It was basically saying, like, he would float out statistics like, well, adultery has skyrocketed statistically since women went to the workplace. Well, yeah, duh. You put men and women around each other, that happens. But should we then segregate men and women at church too? Because prior to the workplace, that was the place where people mixed the most, right? Neighborhood functions. You don't want to get these these people with, X and Y chromosomes together because, the hormones, yes, obviously people, if you put them in working environments together, that will, increase that. But his point was, therefore, see, women should be in the home. That was his whole point. And men should be in the workplace. And there's a lot of sexism in the church. There's no way around it. There's racism. There is, and I'm not saying there's racism under every bush. This week I put a Facebook post up, and A. David, our good friend, was showing Trey Gowdy, reach out to Mr. Cummings and say, hey, I really appreciate him, and yada yada. And what was amazing was A. David came in with a perspective. He's like, hey, man, look, I got to call this out because that's great and all, but let me tell you what it looks like on the ground in South Carolina. I see hypocrisy here, yada, yada. And A. David is the kind of guy where when that comes from him, I listen because I know who he is. And I know that nothing's a knee-jerk reaction with that dude. He's thought through it carefully. He's thought through it biblically. He has the right attitude for reconciliation. But he was like, hey, there's more. It's a little bit deeper of an issue. And I think in the same way that there's racism that and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm racist because, not saying that. What I'm saying is there are issues here that don't get addressed. And that's what A. David was raising. And I'm pulling that into this with sexism. There are issues of sexism, and some of it is theology. Some people have theology that says, and I was here for a long time, that says, we each have our place, God-given, and we must stick to it. And so that is where John MacArthur's coming from, that tradition of women will not be elders, women will not be this, women will not be that. And yet, one person posted and said, even if John MacArthur were right theologically, that kind of verbiage to say that to a woman, first off, right? Like there is something to be said for being a gentleman. But secondly, as a leader, and thirdly, just as a Christian, like, did you really say that to somebody?
Right.
Go home. So it's caused controversy. As far as I'm concerned, there's not been any public apology, and I doubt very much that there will be.
Well, I don't think he thinks he did anything wrong. So
right, correct. And that's kind of the concern, I think. I think that's what's upset people is, again, we live in a world where things are seen to be, we hear about white privilege, and for some people it's like red rag to a bull. They hear the term white privilege and they go nuts because they get all defensive. But John MacArthur, let's just be honest, he is in his position because he is a good Bible teacher, sure, but were he a female, he would not be in that position, right? Whatever the reasons for that are. So is there a male privilege? Yes, there is, undoubtedly. I gotta stop saying Paula. Beth Moore, good. Paula White, bad. We'll just put it in Frankenstein terms there since it's Halloween. But Beth Moore, she is doing the same thing. She is an expositor of the word. She is a biblically based Bible teacher who obviously aims her, teaching at women. And he's, for whatever reason, unknown to us, I guess that's too much, right? Like that somehow it's woman, keep your place. And that's what seems to be at the root of this that I see as a major problem. I am theologically liberated on this issue, but I understand those people that aren't, that are theological. I'm not going to, we don't choose our convictions. We read the word, we make a judgment, we think we know what it says, and we go from there. For those of you that hold that conservative role that are saying, hey, I'm just trying to be true to Scripture, I get you. But there is a latent sexism, and this is not an issue of what women can and can't do. Beth Moore's not done anything that women can't do. Beth Moore's done what women, even from the most theologically conservative standpoint, can do. Women can teach other women. They're commanded to do that in Titus. So how are we not, like, it's sexism. Wherever you fall on the issue, it was a sexist comment. You can't just do that.
Well, I don't really
Afternoon
know.
podcast.
Well, my first thought was, like I said before, I think it could have just been a knee-jerk reaction, except he's got a history of that. And, like, why would you do that? Like, why? How does it serve? Right. How does it benefit the church in any way, the people of the church?
Right. Well, it encourages this kind of behavior, right? Like, there's a point at which, like, Paul White, gosh dang it.
Afternoon podcast.
Beth Moore. There's a point at which, like Wesley, my favorite quote from him, is when the guy's walking one of his opponents who, Wesley was a meathead at times, and he's my hero. But Wesley was walking down the street, and that guy says, I never give way to fools. And Wesley steps around him and walks around him and smiling says, I always do, and just walks right around him. And, that's funny. It's to the guy's face. It's one-on-one. The guy was being a jerk. Wesley was an amazing intellect, had an amazing comeback. And we laugh because that's just, two guys being meatheads. We can laugh at that. Beth Moore was minding her own freaking business. She wasn't doing anything, dude. And I could just imagine being her husband and being like, hey, John, you punched my wife verbally in the face for no reason. I am her husband. I am her protector. I have a problem with that. And you need to be a man and knock it off and apologize. Like, I'd be taking him on. If that were my wife, dude, I'd be having something to say, because even if you're a sexist, like, be consistent, treat the little woman like a little woman and be a freaking gentleman. If you're going to be old school, be old school, right? Don't start taking women on in public. So anyways, I know I'm mad. This is all coming. My nerd rage is being pushed, but, yeah, that's my, there's another generation coming up, and I don't want to see them act like that,
Yeah, and we've talked about on the podcast before, women in ministry. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. And, I definitely grew up hearing one thing, and my beliefs have definitely changed in reading the Bible and thoroughly reading it, specifically going, okay, what exactly is God saying here about roles for men and for women?
Right.
And I came to the conclusion after really rereading the New Testament and just really looking at it, I'm like, okay, we've got prophetesses And every time, not every time, but most of the time when it says brothers, there's got a little, footnote, and then you look down, it goes, well, it means brothers and sisters.
Right.
Oh, well, that doesn't fit in with how we now interpret everything, so we're just going to put that in the footnote. But when Peter was talking, when Paul was talking, they're saying brothers and sisters. But we give this impression that it's just the man talking to the men, and then the men go home and tell their little wife, here's what you're going to do, here's how you're going to run things. And that's not what was actually going down in the early church.
Right.
And,
yeah, I mean, we've talked about Romans 16 being a third women. He keeps calling them fellow workers and greet so-and-so as a church in her house. And
well, see, my favorite one is when I brought that up to my mom, and my mom goes, yeah, but that doesn't mean that she was running the church or something like that. And I go, oh, really? So he's saying what's up to everyone else. And then, hey, custodian over there for that church over there, I'm going to give you a high five. I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Always made my tea, when I went there. No, it wasn't like that. This was someone of significance. This was a woman leader. And what's amazing is that every time the Spirit moves, and we've talked about this, every time the Spirit moves, you see there's a rise in the women because the giftings are being, awoken in people. And you see, like with the 1904-05 revival that happened, William Booth, that happened. It happens in every revival because the ministry, they don't run church services anymore. It becomes interactive church. Because it becomes interactive, people's gifts are used. Wesley started seeing all these women preachers preaching the gospel. Even if you're super conservative, you believe in women evangelists. You do whether you know it or not, because that does not have anything to do with Paul's Timothy reference. And in fact, the woman at the well brought a whole village to Jesus, right? She went out and said, come here, see a man who told me everything I ever did. And so she was an evangelist. And we have, you and I talked, the fastest growing church in the world right now is the churches in the Middle East that are largely led by women. And here's my thing, because what I always do is I always like to challenge. I'll have friendly conversations, and I'm never hard on people, because my wife and I went toe to toe and round on this for years, where I believed, hey, I'm just trying to be true to Scripture. And so I got a lot of time for people trying to work this out. But I tell you where it started to crack for me. Number one was team leadership, where I'm on these teams and I need the women there, because I'm not going to shepherd women. So I'm like, well, I need women shepherds, right? I don't want to take women out. Like, I need women evangelists. Like, I'm meant to equip the saints, but I don't want to be in these closed quarters with women that aren't my wife and get really touchy-feely with them. So, it became an obvious deal. Plus, every eldership team that's only men goes home. They all talk to their wives. Their wives go, what? You're nuts. What are you thinking? Everybody knows this is true. And then they go back and go, hey, guys, I prayed about it, and I think we were wrong. No, it's because, in your marriage, you don't make all the decisions, right? God, the leadership of the home, even though people say, oh, well, headship, you both lead your children.
Right.
Like, you as the man are the servant leader, correct? You are the servant. That's what leadership means in the New Testament. It doesn't mean you're the authority. It never says that. It means you're the servant. You are responsible to serve your family spiritually, to take the lead in that. But it doesn't, all that, oh, my husband breaks the tie. That's all made up. We made that up. And the reality is, God made male and female perspectives for a reason. So like when you're leading your kids, sometimes you got the wrong end of the stick, and your wife's like, oh no, actually, you know what? You're not thinking about this right. And it's the same with leading the church. And I always like to kind of gently push back. I say, hey, the head covering passage? There's 3 passages in the New Testament that seem to prevent women from doing things. Number 1, from not wearing head coverings or cutting their hair short. And I always say, but we say, oh, read the context, right? And because there was a context there. And they go, oh, yeah, no, totally. There's a context. That's cultural. Then we say, oh, women keep silent in church, right? And we know that that's not literal because, like you pointed out, Philip had 5 daughters that were prophetesses, which was a public meeting. And when Paul says, therefore, brothers and sisters, when one of you brings a prophecy, as you said, it both. So we know exegetically that women were not silent in church. So we say, oh, that's cultural. Why then when we come to the one in Timothy where Paul says, for I do not permit women to teach and have authority over men. Why do we not look at that one and say, well, what was culturally going on here? Why is it okay to give a pass on the other two? But on this one, we go, oh, nope, it's literal. Couldn't be anything going on there. Like, could it be that Paul writing to Timothy in Ephesus, the mothership of the other 7 churches planted, the 7 churches of Asia, where Jesus addresses, that woman Jezebel, who was one of the churches who became a cult leader, a sex cult leader in one of the churches. It couldn't be that this letter was written to deal with that, and that Paul's referring generally, yes, to say, hey, Timothy, I wouldn't allow a woman to teach. Well, I wouldn't either, right? Like, that violates team leadership. The first century leadership of the church was team leadership. And if you read the elders and deacons descriptions, they each have roles on the leadership. They each serve. And so that's for Paul's fellow workers, So team leadership to me, even if I read the most conservative way of looking at that passage, women don't teach and have authority over men, nor do I as a man go and do a lot of that stuff over women. It's kind of like, hey, there's times where women minister best to women and men minister best to men. And together we minister, just like in my home, mother and father, we minister as male and female because the two together make up the image of God. And so that's my quick. We have 2 minutes left, don't we? So
we do.
That's my diatribe. But that's my little potted thing that I like to, if you're working through that stuff today, that's just kind of my thing that I would say, think that through a bit. Maybe there's more going on.
I think if you're going to think that through, though, and you're really going to spend some time focusing on that, then you're probably going to need some help with payroll and workers' comp. And
oh, dude, totally. And you know what? It's so rad because when you're studying all that pastoral theology and trying to get the roles together, and even reading John MacArthur's Rocking the Roles books, tells your wife, get back in the kitchen, woman. When you're doing all that stuff, sorry, that's a bad joke, but no, his book does say that stuff. So when you're doing all of this research and study, you need to get in touch, Pete, with simplifiedchurch.com.
Wait, what was that again?
It's called simplifiedchurch.com.
Simplifiedchurch.com.
Yeah, it means that they do all that stuff for you. They do all of your bookkeeping, all your payroll, all of your IRS compliancy, and they've been awesome sponsors of this podcast for a good many years, Pete. So head on over to simplifiedchurch.com. One last thing, guys. Check out the Ministry Ninja YouTube channel where we have been doing ECCU videos, the Church Planning and Money Show. And I'm on there with Kurt Blake, Church Planning Specialist for ECCU. And we've been talking about the Beatitudes of Budgeting. So check that out.
What are you, little Wolfman Jack there?
Do you like that? Because it's Halloween,
I guess so.
You gotta so. Not bad for an afternoon podcast, Sign us out. So, hey.
Just remember, everyone, if you want to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing, you got to do something. And I can't remember your tagline. Here, I tried to take it over, I couldn't remember
that's good enough. That's good enough. If you want to reach one's nose, you need to go where no one's going. Do what no one's doing.
There you go. Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planner Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planner Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplannerpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planner Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplannermagazine.com.